Hey everybody, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O. Hope you guys are doing good today. It's going to be Isaiah 36. That's where we're going to roll. And it's kind of neat. It really gets into the narrative of this book, the book of Isaiah. So it's kind of nice. It's kind of a neat little nuance to the book we'll get into. But anyway, welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo-O. Super stoked you're with me today. I'm always live, usually Monday through Friday, and it's just really my time to get in the Word a little bit and invite anybody who wants to join me can also go through it. And I go through the Bible. That's kind of how I do my devotions. I just start at the beginning and just roll through it. And so for those that have never read the Bible, maybe go, oh, I've read some of it, but you just haven't really done that, then hopefully you can do it with me and just go through it, walk through it. I just go through it chapter by chapter. Sometimes I'll take 2 chapters, but usually just roll through a chapter or 2 a morning and kind of break down a little bit of it. And kind of put it into some life application. And so that's kind of what the devotion's all about, really, is just kind of devoting our hearts to God. Not something I always did in my life, I must say. And so it's been a cool journey for me to learn the Bible over the last 35 years. So chapter 36. Let's get into it. So this is the title on my Bible says Assyria invades Judah. Okay, so we know Assyria has already really wrecked shop on the northern tribes of Israel. And we've already got that, and now they're kind of pushing into the southern part of Israel. Again, Israel has been a land that has been conquered over and over and over again. The Jewish people, or I like to call them the Hebrew people, have been persecuted, and there's been many attempts on just outright genocide on them repetitively. It's kind of interesting that in our day and age, you still see the same kind of heart, right? A heart to eradicate Israel. And you even hear genocidal kind of chants that go on. It's just unbelievable, right, that still happens. Really, the Bible is that relevant. Same things going on back then that goes on today. So in the 14th year of King Hezekiah's reign, King Sennacherib of Assyria came to attack the fortified towns of Judah and conquered them. So we see how different this chapter kind of comes out. It's really going through the narrative, the history of what is taking place with the king of Assyria, and it says Sennacherib and Hezekiah. So it's kind of neat. We're getting a little detail here into history, and that's always fun, huh? Learning history. And that's one thing that I could always kind of settle my heart on today is that, the Bible isn't some fairy tale. It is rooted in history. And so I really can kind of settle my heart on that, that I'm not just believing in some made-up thing. I used to think that years ago. I used to think like, oh, Christians just believed in some once upon a time in a galaxy far, far and away. But when you actually read the Bible, you realize we're talking about people, places, things, real people, a moment in history for sure. It is a history book, if you will, a history of the world from God's point of view. It says, Then the king of Assyria sent his chief of staff from Lachish with a huge army to confront King Hezekiah in Jerusalem. The Assyrians took up a position beside the aqueduct that feeds water into the upper pool, near the road leading to the field where cloth is washed. And it says, these are the officials who went out to meet them: Eliakim, Hilkiah, the palace administrator, Shebna, the court secretary, and Joash, son of Asaph, the royal historian. So once again, the Bible kind of throws a loop for those that are professors in college of the Bible, or people like that. Sometimes professors in colleges tend to say things like the Bible was passed by oral tradition, they just wrote it down years after the fact, blah, blah, blah. But that's not what the Bible reports at all. The Bible reports that people wrote these things down, that there was actually historians even back then. So they're not something that we got, 7 million years after the fact. These are things that were written at the time. Historians, people writing down what the history was. So it's very cool. And it says, then the Assyrian king chief of staff told them to give this message to Hezekiah. So here we have the insight of an Assyrian king chiefs of staff telling something to the king of Judah. So I got to admit, I haven't read many letters from or heard many conversations, or any for that matter, from our president to the president, our leader of another nation. I just have never gotten that. I've never been privy to those things. Maybe you have, probably you haven't, right? But the Bible here gives us these wonderful, kind of eye-opening letters of king to king and what they were. How did Isaiah get it? We're not told. But we know Isaiah was a very popular person in the area. And so let's read it. It says, this is what the king of Assyria says. What are you trusting in that makes you so confident? Do you think that mere words can substitute for military skill and strength? Sometimes we think that way, right? Praying. Do you think just praying is going to help you out? Just saying a few things is going to help you? I mean, you gotta do it, bro. You gotta get on it. Those words, they really don't amount to anything. And we kind of always fall into two errors, right? Either we go, hey, yeah, praying's nothing, it's all action, or we say it's all action and no prayer. Instead of maybe equating both of them in a day and say, I'm going to pray, but I'm also going to take steps of action. And when I take steps of action, maybe I'm going to pray, in doing that. But this is what this Assyrian king gives to Hezekiah. Hey, who are you trusting in? I mean, you're no match for the military skill that we have. Your trusting in God doesn't amount to a hill of beans kind of idea. Who are you counting on? What you have rebelled against me? Oh, on Egypt? If you lean on Egypt, it will be like a reed that splinters beneath your weight and pierces your hand. Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, is completely unreliable. It's interesting. God's message through Isaiah to the people and to the king specifically of Judah is always don't rely on Egypt. And here you see that even the king of Assyria says, hey, don't rely on Egypt. It's not going to help you. Sometimes we just rely on things that really aren't going to help you. You're leaning on someone that you maybe just can't lean on, right? They aren't able to hold you up. And maybe you want so badly for that person to hold you up and to be there for you. And when they're not there, it lets you down so hardcore, right? That it really kind of moves you off. And maybe that's just too much pressure on that person that you're leaning against, right? Maybe you need to lean on God more and not so much that person. It says, but perhaps you will say to me, we are trusting in the Lord our God. But isn't he the one who was insulted by Hezekiah? Didn't Hezekiah tear down his shrines and altars and make everyone in Judah and Jerusalem worship only at the altar here at Jerusalem? So he's kind of bagging on some of what Hezekiah has done to try to fix worship situations in Israel. Kind of a personal attack. Man, isn't it God against you, Hezekiah? I mean, do I have it wrong? And then, yeah, I think the king of Assyria does have things a little off. But, personal attacks are always tough, right? When you're in an argument or you're in some kind of conflict and someone starts kind of attacking you, especially attacking your walk with God, that can be kind of a tough pill to swallow, right? But, I have to realize that, that might happen. People might attack my walk with God. And how am I going to respond to that? And that's something I need to be thinking about. I'll tell you what, strike a bargain with my master, the king of Assyria, and I will give you 2,000 horses if you can find that many men to ride on them. With your tiny army, how can you think of challenging even the weakest contingent of my master's troops? Even with the help of Egypt's chariots and charioteers, what more do you think we have invaded your land without the Lord's direction? The Lord himself told us, attack this land and destroy it. Whoa, talk about playing with Hezekiah's mind. Man, you think God's on your side, God's on our side. God told us to go and attack this. It's interesting that even the people of Assyria have this idea of the God of Israel and his personal dealings with the land. And that's kind of interesting, don't you think? I mean, the people of Assyria, have this cognitive idea that this God of the Bible, the God of Israel, Yahweh, is personally involved, not only in Israel's life, but in their life as well. It kind of makes me think, too, is that sometimes maybe in a day, I don't think God's moving in someone's life when maybe God is. And it's just not so visible to me. So I might judge them in a particular way when really I just don't have all the facts. I don't really know what God's doing in their life. So maybe I need to kind of be patient with my judgments of people. Realizing that maybe God's working in their heart too at this moment, and in a way that I don't even know about, that possibly could be true. But usually we're quick to judge just by our own perceptions of things, what we perceive, and yet we can really perceive to be wrong. And it says, then Eliakim, Shebna, and Joash said to the Assyrian chief of staff, please speak to us in Aramaic, for we understand it well. Don't speak in Hebrew, for the people on the wall will hear. Meaning, don't share what you're saying publicly, bro. Everybody hears it, and they're going to get scared of what you're saying. Because here you got the king of Assyria saying, hey, God's on our side, man. We're going to wipe you out. God said, hey, we're going to come in and take you guys, take it out, just blow up the whole place. And Hezekiah's, cabinet says, hey, could you speak to us in Aramaic? We understand it, but those people don't, and we don't want to scare our people. They understand Hebrew, but they're not so fluent in Aramaic. And so you get that kind of idea here. And it says, but Sennacherib's chief of staff replied, do you think my master sent this message only to you and to your master? He wants all the people to hear it, for when we put this city under siege, they will suffer along with you. They will be so hungry and thirsty that they will eat their own dung and drink their own urine. That is pretty gnarly, right? When someone is digging at you so hardcore where they get a little bit, intense with their words. Words can go from, kind of semi-okay to all of a sudden radical pretty quick. Look at your tongue. Look at how you've spoken. And you probably go, yeah, that's been me too. Yeah, and it happens obviously in these government documents, but it can happen to us just personally in our lives, and we have to be careful of that we don't escalate our words to where we start getting so frustrated, like a blocked goal, right? You want someone to understand, you want someone to hear, but they're not understanding, they're not hearing, and then you just start attacking, right? You can't seem to get through with, quote, reason. So now you just attack the person. Oh, yeah, we're going to, you know what? I want them to hear because we're going to jack you. We're not just going to jack you, but your guys are going to eat, your own stuff. And so you could see how the words are just escalating here. And it says, Then the chief of staff stood and shouted in Hebrew to the people on the wall, Listen to this message from the king of Assyria. This is what the king says, Don't let Hezekiah deceive you. He will never be able to rescue you. Don't let him fool you in trusting in the Lord by saying, The Lord will surely rescue us. This city will never fall into the hands of the Assyrian king. So here, again, they kind of go at the people. Now they're addressing the people, just the people that are close. Hey, you are going to get attacked, but not just are you going to get attacked, but don't trust, your leadership. And this puts us in a quandary a lot, where we start getting divided in our heart when it comes to who we trust in leadership. And that's never a good place to be, right? Where your heart becomes divided. You're like, yeah, someone sows that seed of discord, right, in your heart to now you don't trust. Sometimes people will sow a seed of discord in someone's heart, meaning what I'm saying by sowing a seed is they're planting that kind of yuck in someone's heart by saying, you shouldn't really trust them. Did you really know what's going on? Can you really trust them? And pretty soon you have this idea like, I don't know if I can. That's right. Maybe I can't. And then, there's this compromise in you. Instead of going full bore into something with someone, you now have a reluctancy. And it's all based on someone's knowledge. It's like second, third hand knowledge. And that's a bummer, right? And it kind of puts the people in this situation. It puts all the people in a situation of, am I going to trust? Who am I going to trust? What news network am I going to listen to? Am I going to listen to the news network of southern Israel? Am I going to listen to Isaiah? Am I going to listen to the speakers for the Assyrian Empire? Who am I going to listen to for my news? And you could see how confusing it was even back then, let alone today, where we have 24-hour outlets, just nonstop news. And so, the best thing we could always do is just go back to Jesus and go back to what he said and find our confidence just in him and in him alone, because everything else really is just sinking sand. It's shifty. It's like building something on sand. It just sand is always changing. It's always moving with the wind. So it's like, our foundation has to be strong when there's so much information coming at us. It says, Don't listen to Hezekiah. These are the terms the king of Assyria is offering. Make peace with me, open the gates, and come out, each of you, and you'll continue eating from your own grapevine and fig tree, and drinking from your own well. Then I will arrange to take you to another land, like this one, a land of grain and new wine, bread and vineyards. Hey, you guys will be great. We'll just disperse you. We'll take you, we'll deport you, and you will go to our land. We'll establish you in another place, but you'll get to eat. Don't let Hezekiah mislead you by saying the Lord will rescue us. Have the gods of any other nations ever saved their people from the king of Assyria? Boasting, right? Oh man, has anybody really beat me? Remember when, or you guys are maybe too young, I don't know, but remember when Mike Tyson was like unbeatable? And then what was it? Buster Douglas knocked him out. I remember it was a shocker. Sometimes you can get really cocky when you're on top. And it says, what happened to the gods of Hamath and Arpad? And what about the gods of Sephaim? Did the god of Samaria, did any god rescue Samaria from my power? What god of any nation has ever been able to save its people from my power? So what makes you think that the Lord can rescue Jerusalem from me? Hey, it makes sense, right? All these other people had gods and they got conquered. What about you? What's going to happen to you? It says, "But the people were silent and did not utter a word to Hezekiah, and commanded them, 'Do not answer him.' Then Eliakim and Hilkiah and the palace administrator Shebna, the court secretary, and Joash, son of Asaph, the royal historian, went back to Hezekiah. They tore their clothes in despair, and they went in to see the king and told him what the Assyrian chief of staff had said." Now we're going to see Isaiah's going to be a part of all this working in the government. There's no doubt that's how he knew all this stuff and was able to, have it in this book. But you could see where instead of, them maybe just caving in, they really said, "Hey, let's go talk to the king. Let's go bring this to the king." They did not answer him. Sometimes that's the best thing we can do in conflict. Sometimes there's no answer we can give. There's nothing to say, right? Someone's trying to maybe pit you against another person. It might be confusing. It might be complicated. It might be painful in your heart. Sometimes the best thing is just to remain quiet. Maybe go seek some more counsel. Maybe go seek prayer, seek God in prayer, that kind of thing. Instead of just flying by the seat of your pants kind of thing and just opening up your mouth and see what comes out, kind of thing. Sometimes that's the worst. So a very cool kind of insight into what's going on in the government of Israel. I wonder what's going on today in the government of Israel and the letters that are being written, the emails, the calls, right? That kind of thing. Who is Israel going to trust? And I guess it comes down to us too. Who are we going to trust? And remember how Jesus remained silent when he was under incredible pressure from the government to say something, and they wanted him to speak, and he remained silent. Wow, that's powerful. Sometimes all we can do is just trust that God's going to do what God's going to do, and we're going to have to remain silent. And so that's why the Bible says, hey, be, quick to listen, right? Slow to speak. And because it says the wrath of humans do not produce the righteousness of God. Our wrath that comes through our tongue, right? Instead of being quick to listen to people, but slow to speak, we become quick to speak and slow to listen. And our anger builds, right? Because what we're trying to do is control people and manipulate people. And when we try to do those things and we see that it doesn't work, we get mad. And we can get depressed, mad, anxious, because things aren't going our way. And that's how our selfishness and our own narcissistic tendencies tend to work in all of us, So I love the idea that Jesus keeps silent, doesn't have to defend himself, and he goes to God, right? Man, radical. So cool things to think about today. And hey, have a good Friday and have a great weekend. We'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.